Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. I'm Katherine Peterson here with my co-host, Michael Regan, and we are excited today to bring you another guest, a friend, coworker, Cody Steinmann, who is just one of those people who I could talk to for hours and hours. And so I'm pretty excited to share some of the things that he's been working on lately and talk to him a little bit about those. So with that, first, welcome, Michael.
Yeah, happy to be here, Catherine. And yeah, really excited to have Cody. You're right. He is a guy that we either one could talk to for hours. In fact, I've done that before and never got bored. We found out we had a bottomless pit of rock and roll knowledge to debate. That was always fun. But we also have a lot of passion for the housing industry. And I think today you're going to get to see or hear, depending on the format you're tuned in. You're going to get to understand where Cody's really able to balance his passion for data with a real connection with people. And I think that's something that we all want to learn from as we go. I won't set him on too high of a pedestal. He's also very humble, very approachable, and really engaging. So, Cody, really glad to have you with us today. Welcome to Building Bigger Lives.
Thank you very much. Super happy to be here. Do you mind, before we get started, I just got to repay a favor you did for me about 5 years ago. I just got to change my clothes really quick.
Oh my gosh,
Hold on
here it
one
comes.
second.
Here
For
it comes.
those of you listening, Cody is slowly unbuttoning his shirt. So
He
I will
brought
narrate.
the shirt
Okay, here we
back
go.
for the attack. Look at him.
So he is now wearing a Black Sabbath shirt, and it's black, but with a suit coat. So we'll take it.
I got to tell you, the biggest compliment when you did my podcast 5 years ago is Catherine, I wore concert shirts on every podcast. We did the sport coat, and Michael shows up. I pick him up from the airport. We go out to lunch. He's wearing a button-up shirt. We talk for a little bit. We start the podcast, and he goes, "Hold on a second." Took off his shirt. And he was wearing, I think it was a Led Zeppelin t-shirt.
Nice.
And what that said to me is that Michael took the time to actually watch and listen to my podcast. So
Yeah.
I wanted to return the favor. Brought out the Black Sabbath for you.
Well done, my friend. Catherine, I'm already having fun. It's going to be hard for me to know how to wrangle this in because you know what a dark hole I can go down if we're going to talk rock and roll music. So, Cody, thank you. It is a pleasure to have you today.
Super happy to be here.
All right, well, let's get this puppy rolling, and we are not going to talk about music today. I'm gonna put some. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how many times you guys can slide it in without me catching you. All right, so one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about, Cody and I talk at least every other week about some things on accountability. But one of the things that Cody has been really working on as a big project is YouTube Live. So Cody, tell us a little bit about that and how you started it, and tell us a little bit about how that's evolved over time.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back a little bit further.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of podcasts when they were just getting started. I've been watching Joe Rogan for 7-8 years. And I remember my coworker, Ryan McCracken, and I'm like, I think we could do this. I think I could start my own podcast. And so, very long story short, we bought all the equipment. We started doing this podcast. And what came from that was relationships and conversations that I thought I'd never be able to have. And it got me to a point where I could walk into a conference or a room, and people that I would be intimidated to talk to, or people that wouldn't know who I am, now know who I am. And some lifelong friendships like Michael came from that. And then COVID hit. We got extremely busy at work. Mortgages took off, refinances took off. And we've been doing the podcast for about 3 years at that point. We'd done 36 3-hour episodes. We decided to pause the podcast and focus on our mortgage business, and we never came back to it. And to this day, that's one of my biggest regrets in my career, is letting that go. And so a year and a half ago, about this time of year, I was thinking about new ideas for podcasts. Kind of had this one I was kicking around, not to relaunch what we were doing, but to start something new, something different. Because when we started a podcast, a lot of people in our industry, or a lot of people in general, didn't really understand what a podcast was. And I didn't understand at the time, but we were kind of on the cutting edge of that. We were doing podcasts before all the big mortgage podcasts came up. And so I start thinking, okay, what's the next big thing that nobody else is doing yet on social media that I can kind of try out? And I was thinking, I got out of the shower on a Saturday morning early at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was thinking, maybe I should call Michael and see what he thinks. And start getting dressed and my phone rings and it's Michael Regan. And, we hadn't talked in months. And what are the chances are that I'm kind of struggling with this idea, and then somebody I really look up to from a coaching level called and wanted to talk. So we talked for about an hour that morning. And I don't know if you guys remember, but when I was young, we would go to the coast. I live in Southwest Washington, so we'd go to the Oregon-Washington coast. And I would turn on Saturday mornings the PBS channel, the public broadcasting, and they would have these real estate slideshows where if you're a real estate agent, you can put up your listing and it does slideshows of all the pictures to like really relaxing music. And then at the end, there would be the business card for the real estate agent. So I remember being young, like 13, 14 years old, and watching this just to look at all the cool beach houses. So my idea was to kind of bring that back, but bring it back in 2023 at the time and do it on YouTube. At the same time, in my other hobbies that are non-mortgage related, I watch a lot of YouTube live streams where somebody's streaming live on YouTube. There's live chat, and it's a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to participate in. So I decided I'm going to do a live stream version of what we saw when I was a kid on PBS. And I decided to call it My Mortgage Hound. I'm a big bird hunter. And if anybody that knows me, if you come in my office or if you're around me, there's a good chance there's a bird dog here. And so we call it My Mortgage Hound. And we go over some market statistics. And then we dive into 2 to 3 to 4 properties. I just pull them up on Zillow, really simple. And we go through all the pictures. We go through the description. We make fun of the real estate agent. We have fun going through all of it. And at the same time, people are chatting. And a lot of times if a real estate agent will send me a property that they want to feature on the live stream, they'll be in answering questions. I could say, oh, is that a propane tank, or what kind of hardwood floors are in that house? And they'll be able to chat. They're not on the stream with me, but they'll be able to chat and answer questions. And then we run mortgage scenarios on them. And it's become a really, really fun format. And I think we've been doing it almost 2 years. We've done over 60 episodes so far.
Wow.
Yeah, Cody, I definitely remember that phone call. And I think a lot of it, if you remember, was I was also churning on this idea of something that sounded a little bit like a YouTube live as well. And similar to your logic, I wanted to get away from what I felt was, maybe more Facebook based at that time. Everybody was, hosting groups on Facebook, doing Facebook Live. And I thought, hey, YouTube to me feels like a better algorithm, feels like a better place to go. And so hearing your idea, again, I didn't know that when I called you. I was truly calling to check in because I've learned that when you get those thoughts in your head of, hey, I'm thinking about somebody, pick up the phone, give them a call, let them know that you're thinking of them. And so to have that conversation with you was kind of exciting to me. And Catherine, you may remember our last episode that was, a recently published episode that we had on our 50th podcast episode. We talked about the origin story of where did our idea come from. So we can now connect the dots to that conversation with Cody, because a lot of the fresh thinking he was doing around what would become My Mortgage Hound helped me feel really good about pulling together what would become our Building Bigger Lives podcast. So, Cody, really fun to remember that. One of the things that I definitely was excited about when you shared some of that news with me was your desire to keep things spontaneous and fresh and not overly scripted. Is that just your nature and your style, or was there something about that you felt would be more authentic to the participant or the listener? What was your thought process around spontaneity?
Well, that's a big question. Okay. And I have 2 answers. The first answer is easy. I'm lazy. Okay. When we're done with this podcast today, you guys are going to have to go in and post edit and upload it to the YouTube. And so when we did our original podcast and on the live stream, let me go back. When you're doing things like this, what we're doing now, and we're doing the live stream, the key is consistency. and to be able to do it whenever you commit to do it, however often you commit to do it, without missing a single episode. And so when I'm setting up something that I'm going to add to my already busy calendar, and I went through what I went through with the Hunt for Success podcast and live with that regret for letting that go, it's got to be something that's easy for me to personally manage. And so doing either a live recording, when we did our podcast, we didn't air it live, but we would record it live. So no editing. Ryan would run the software behind the scenes where he's switching cameras and doing all that live. And then so when we're done, you just hit upload and we're done. The live stream is easy, even easier than that, because you click go live, you control everything live. And then when you're done, it's already on YouTube and it lives there forever. And so, making it, being lazy or making it as easy as possible also opens up the format to where it is more spontaneous. And I think we come across more authentic. You're not going to re-record the same sentence over and over again where you try not to say or basically or cough. You just let that be in the stream because that's really who you are. And I think when you look at like Joe Rogan, who's the easiest to talk about because he's the #1 podcaster in the world, his audience is bigger than any cable TV show, any news anchor, any late night show. And he does it live. He doesn't really have a format. And what ends up happening is you have great conversations, no matter how long the format is, you end up having really organic, great conversations. In fact, I had another idea. We can talk about this offline for another podcast I'm thinking about, because I had two dear friends of mine at our beach house this last weekend, and we were up late at night talking about heaven and quantum physics and where does your soul go when you die. We had this unbelievable conversation, and they didn't know it, but I took out my phone and went to memo and just hit record. And I was playing it back this morning while I was getting ready for this podcast. And it was only 15 minutes, but it was an unbelievable conversation that I was able to record. And selfishly, that's another thing is what we're doing today, we'll be able to go back and watch as many times as we want. You're capturing a moment in time. Ryan and I will often go, oh, hey, this weekend I went back and watched the podcast we did with Michael Regan, or I did the one with the UFC fighter. So you selfishly, you get to go back and relive those moments. But yeah, the spontaneity, authenticity, and making it easy so you can do it. And since I've been doing my stream, we do it every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. I've missed 2 in 2 years. I got to the point where I can condense my studio down into a little backpack. And if I go on a family vacation, I just knock it out on a Saturday morning from the hotel room. And a lot of times we'll do, like if we go to Las Vegas, I'll do a Las Vegas special. We'll look at Las Vegas homes. So because I made it so easy, I don't have any excuses to skip it.
Yep. Yep. That's great. And I think that consistency is key. We found that with ours, and definitely keeping that cadence going can mean so much. So kind of I know that you've adjusted it over time and you've learned a lot over time. Tell me what some of your biggest benefits from that have been, and then how you see that moving forward now.
Perfect. I would say the immediate benefit in my mortgage business is, for those of you who aren't in the mortgage industry, real estate agents are kind of the referral buffet. Okay, they are the ones that hand out the majority of the referral agents to the home inspectors, to the insurance agents, to the mortgage lenders, to the sewer test. I mean, they're the ones that are handing out referrals, so they're constantly being hounded for referrals. And you have lenders like us who are always out trying to build relationships. We have goals set up weekly, how many calls we're going to make to new real estate agents, how often are we checking in, are we having events where we're inviting real estate agents to build those deep relationships to get those referrals from. So if nothing else ever comes from my Mortgage Hound live stream, I can walk into a real estate office, start a conversation with a real estate agent, and within 1 minute, I could say, hey, I have a live stream. Do you have any listings that you'd like to feature? So without asking any reciprocity, anything from them, I'm not asking them, do you have any clients I need to call? Who do you show homes to this weekend that could benefit from a call with me? I'm not doing that. I'm walking right in and offering them an opportunity to feature one of their listings for free to YouTube. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that right out of the gate was a huge benefit of doing the live stream, is being able to offer something that nobody else is doing. Nobody else is doing live streams that I know of yet, right? The second benefit, we are starting to get transactions from the live stream. Just in the last 60 days, we've had 2 homes that were sold based off of it being on the live stream, somebody seeing it on the live stream and reaching out to the agent that was on the live stream. So that's happened twice. And that's, that was the number one goal, right? Is to generate transactions based off of the live stream. I think the most profound thing that I've thought about in the last couple months is understanding your goals with YouTube specifically. I think with social media in general, but with YouTube, I think on an accountability call you and I had a few months, I think it was May or June, I said I want to be the #1 mortgage channel on YouTube. And I had a goal set to go from, I think I had 50 subscribers at the time, to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, with a goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers the next year. It's all about subscribers. Well, in October, I started to listen to other people that were doing live streams, look at other successful real estate agents that were having success with YouTube. One, I'll have to look up her name, but she's very local, specifically in Camas, Washington. She does real estate videos like Reasons to Move. They're really cute 5-minute videos. She was getting traction. And so I just went to ChatGPT. And I want to go back and talk about AI, because that was part of our conversation on that Saturday morning, Michael, when you helped me come up with this idea, was AI. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. But in summary, I'll read some of these statistics that ChatGPT gave to me from YouTube in 2024, but I'm going to start with the summary. It's hyper local, and don't worry about the views. When I'm bragging about my live stream to people, they go, "Oh, how many subscribers do you have?" Or "How many people were on last week?" And I said, "Oh, we had 12 people watching live." I told that to, I picked up my daughter from school, and her friend goes, "How many subscribers do you have?" And I said 77, and they all laughed at me, right? I had all these 12-year-olds laughing at me that only had, because they watch Mr. Beast, who has 1 billion subscribers. So if I say I had 12 people watching, inside, that kind of feels like, oh man, you're not really doing much with this. You only have 12 people watching, right? But if I went to a sales meeting and I said, for every Saturday for the last 2 years, I had a meeting with 12 people to talk about mortgages and real estate, I would probably be the most productive prospector in the group. And so don't be disappointed if you're only getting a small amount of views. You definitely want to dive into the YouTube Studio app and look at the analytics, how many people, how the duration for how long they're watching, are they engaged? Engagement's a lot more important than how many people are watching. I would much rather have 12 people watching with the chat blowing up than to have 1,000 people watching with nobody in chat, right? So it adjusted my mindset and my goals for what is the definition of success with this project I'm doing. And then the hyperlocal. So if you want, I can read a few statistics.
Yeah, please.
These are from ChatGPT. So if you're having a bad day and you need advice, just go to ChatGPT. So monthly active users. We'll make this trivia. Michael, give me a number for how many monthly active users on YouTube each month.
1 billion?
2.7 billion.
Wow.
Worldwide. Hours of content. More than 500 hours of video are uploaded every minute.
Crazy.
And I think this is, I'm going to start talking about generations here, but I think this kind of will start that conversation. Daily watch time. Viewers watch over 1 billion hours of content daily. So
Wow.
I grew up a news junkie. You know, I sat in the back of my dad's car and listened to Paul Harvey and Rush Limbaugh. My whole childhood had news on 24/7 up until about 3 or 4 years ago. I decided to cut the news off. And now we don't have any TV services besides Netflix and YouTube, and we watch YouTube. I mean, YouTube has some of the best shows on that are out there right now. So we watch YouTube every night. So 1 billion hours of YouTube daily. Okay, audience demographics. So what do you think the largest demographic age-wise is on YouTube?
Catherine, you got a guess for this one?
I'm going to guess millennials.
18 to 24, which I believe are Gen Zs.
Z, I believe so.
Yeah,
18 to 24, which means they're going to be how old in a couple years, right? They're already kind of in that first-time homebuyer age bracket, and they're the largest demographic on YouTube. Over 70% of watch time comes from mobile devices. This is something I struggle with. I think that includes streaming to a TV.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when I was talking about my shirt, Catherine, you were describing it so people listening that aren't watching. But I think that we're going to see those numbers start to come closer together of how many people are watching content versus listening to it. So I think having video is really important. Okay, so that was general questions about YouTube. I had to give you some general statistics. There's monetization and income. We don't need to go into that. YouTube is the second largest search engine next to Google. And how often do you search for how do I fix my washing machine? And the first result is YouTube, right? And tutorials and how-to videos are among the most watched genres. And that statistic really kind of made me feel good about what I'm doing on the My Mortgage Hound live stream, but also told me I need to do better. So not just, hey, we're looking at houses, but how do I negotiate my home inspection clause, right? How do I find out if this neighborhood has more or less inventory compared to a neighborhood 10 miles away? So we're trying to make it more how-to where when somebody searches for something like that, does a search for how do home inspections work, that maybe they'll find my video and get the content they're looking for to help them with that question. And I think that that's the way to understand the algorithms, is you're not trying to trick an algorithm to get more people to watch it. You want to put out content and then help YouTube find the people that are looking for that content, looking for an answer to a question, want to know how to do a reverse mortgage. I mean, it'd be fun. I could do it. Type into ChatGPT how many searches last month were for reverse mortgages on YouTube, and it'll tell you. Users subscribe to an average of 30 channels. I'm over that. I'm probably closer to 60 channels that I subscribe to. So when you do get a subscription, that really makes you understand that somebody's subscribing, and they probably only subscribe to 30 channels. So it's a big deal when somebody does subscribe, because you're gonna show up in their feed every time you post. And people like to keep their feeds clean. Okay, so then I said, give me stats on mortgage and real estate channels on YouTube. Again, it says consumers turn to video for education and updates on market trends. Channels providing advice on home buying, mortgage options, and real estate investments are increasing in popularity. So that was the whole goal, right, Michael, is to do something that nobody else is doing, like we did with the Hunt for Success podcast, and kind of get in at the beginning. I mean, if I were still doing that podcast today, we'd be way ahead of everybody else. Okay, so, you know, I said hyper local, be a niche content such as historic homes, luxury real estate, or specific communities. For example, gated communities, retirement, perform well by targeting highly engaged audiences. So meaning that if I look at my Mortgage Hound, instead of just putting home buying special, if I put luxury home special, people, those key terms, those niches have a higher engaging audience. Meaning if somebody just types in how to buy a house, you know, they may not be super engaged in your content because your content's not striking that one thing they're looking for. But if I'm going to do horse properties, okay, now if somebody that is looking for information on horse properties, if they stumble upon my channel, their engagement's going to be much higher.
I want to ask you something to kind of help our listeners a little bit. So let's say there's somebody who wants to start this on YouTube, start something like this. What's a couple pieces of advice that you can give? I mean, you come across as so well-spoken and confident, and not everybody's going to have that same piece. So what are some quick tips that we can pass on to the listener before we wrap things up to say, hey, what if they want to do something like this? How can they do that?
Start today. The mistake I made is I had this idea in January of 23, and I didn't post my first live stream until July.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of the reasons your question is leading us to is, well, how's my lighting going to look? Do I have the right software? Where am I going to host it at? How am I going to dress? I mean, how many people? You really have to let go of all that to walk onto somebody else's podcast with two people that you highly respect wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt. Right? So it's an exercise in letting go, right? Let go and just be yourself. And if you're not that exciting of a person, that's okay. Just be who you are, but start today. Don't, perfection is the enemy of
execution,
right? So YouTube and all social media, I think, but YouTube specifically is very, very generous in you don't need to look perfect, right? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be super polished. In fact, I think that people are attracted to the ones that aren't super polished.
Yeah.
And it's really easy. You could literally stop watching when this podcast is over, take out your phone, create a YouTube. If you don't have an account, create a YouTube account and hit live stream and walk outside, and you can be starting a live stream. So it doesn't take, it takes 15 minutes to get set up. So just do it. Don't do what I did and need to ask 100 people what they think and overthink it to death. Because if you go back and watch my early ones, they're kind of a mess. It's okay. But by actually doing it, the speed to get more attractive videos happens organically very, very fast. My wife loves to make fun of me because after I'm done with my live stream, I go into the living room, pour myself a cup of coffee and watch my live stream. And she always laughs. She goes, "You love watching yourself." I don't like watching myself, but I'm looking at, okay, how is my sound, my music level to my microphone level? How is my lighting? Where the houses I picked really that engaging? And I start thinking about, okay, next week, what is it going to look like? So I think it's much better to do that than to sit there and try to make it perfect your first go.
Yeah, well said, Cody. It's fun just listening to you riff on some of these things, because what I hope the audience that we've attached to is doing right now is you're getting their wheels to turn around the idea of what are the excuses I've made. If you're saying out there, hey, I hate being uncomfortable, start getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. Welcome to the club. None of us did on our first episode. The best way to find out is to get started. I mean, we could go down a whole list of these mental blocks that people create for themselves. And what I love about your style is it was, hey, the best way to learn how to swim is get in the water and start going. You're taking that approach, and I hope people hear that. So when Catherine says, hey, you sound very calm, you sound very confident, folks, that comes from being afraid and jumping in and figuring it out. That's how you get there. And isn't that true of anything in our lives? I mean, if you're going to run a marathon and your first, day of training is rolling off the couch to see if you can make it to the mailbox and back, you're probably not a very good runner. That's okay. You'll figure out how to get out of the cul-de-sac tomorrow, and you'll figure out how to get down the street the next day. And before you know it, you're circling the block and we're off and running. I think that's really the takeaway, Cody, is you've taken the bar and said, you can raise the bar on the quality of things like your sound and your lighting as you go. You don't have to have it all figured out to record the first episode.
And if I can piggyback on that, I know we're probably getting close to the end here, but this might be a good way for us to end, is what are the consequences if you don't? Because the world is changing faster than it's ever changed before. And I think a very scary way to look at that is with AI. Mm-hmm. I see people that are sleeping on AI. I was coming home from a trip at the airport, and I had to help a lady order an Uber. She didn't know how to order an Uber. Okay. What is our technology, our industry, whatever industry you're in? What are your relationships? What does all that look 3 to 5 years from now? What does it look 12 months from now? What does it look like next year? Right. Our industry, like all industries, are probably really scared about AI coming in and replacing us. Now, of course, everyone's going to want to deal with relationships, and there's that whole conversation with AI. Don't worry, just be local, go out and be engaging. But the other spot is what if I go out and plant some seeds other places? That because this is all I know how to do is mortgages. I've been doing it for 20 years. This is my career, and I can't have my career disappear.
Maybe a little bit of bird hunting too. Maybe a little bit of bird hunting.
But I want to finish my career in mortgages. So you never know where things are going to lead. And by doing the YouTube channel, it keeps me sharp and on the edge of technology, and how to implement technology in my business. And who knows where that door is going to lead. And maybe it leads, and this is the epiphany you helped me come to that day. I was in this room on the couch talking to you on the phone, as we're talking through this, is what if 5 years from now, AI's encroached in my industry to the point where it's being difficult to earn a living, but I can do what I do best on YouTube, and that's generating revenue. And here I am doing exactly what I was doing before, but I pivoted to a new technology that's generating income. Now, I'm not saying that's my goal, but who knows where those doors are going to open. So I think if you are ignoring AI, if you're ignoring and I wanted to say this in the statistics, millennials, when's the last time you heard a speaker talk about millennials? It's been a few years, right? Where that was the conversation. Every seminar you went to was all about how to engage with millennials. Well, those millennials were 18 to 24. Now they're in their late 30s, early 40s, and nobody's talking about them anymore. Well, they're a huge viewer of YouTube, and they're out wanting information and engaging on real estate on YouTube. So why aren't people talking about millennials anymore? Now's the most important time. So I think that if you don't go out and get engaged in some format or go put yourself out there, you're never going to open those doors that could lead to opportunities that could save your ass if the technology in your industry does disrupt it to the point where you struggle.
Yeah, it sure seems to me like if the famous quote was, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've already got. I think AI is going to even disrupt that quote. You won't always get what you've already got. You'll get less. It's definitely a changer. And so rather than being afraid of it, I love your curiosity that says, okay, how can I elevate my game to do some things that might not be in the direct competition of where AI can currently engage. And as it learns and grows, so do we. And I hope that what we continue to do is we keep finding out what opportunities get created as the proliferation of technology encroaches. It will solve certain problems, but it will create new ones. And if we continue to get excited about being problem solvers in the future, you're right. I mean, if we could go back in time 20 years ago, and if I could have told you, yeah, we'll be on a podcast talking about your YouTube live channel, that would have sounded weird. Yet here we are, and it doesn't sound weird. And I think we're going to benefit from that spirit of curiosity. Cody, it's so fun to talk to you. You're already reminding me of why we need to get back in a regular rotation of the Saturday morning phone calls. So after you get off the air next week, we'll instead of reviewing your most recent recording, I'll give you the review and we'll just talk about it.
I would love that, but you said something really profound. Not everybody's going to do what you said, and probably fewer are than are. Fewer are not going to do it than are. So get ahead of it now. Don't be that 50-year-old guy that doesn't know how to order an Uber. Use Chat GPT. I just got AI glasses. I think they're going to be here tomorrow. I can't wait for my AI glasses. But you learn how to read YouTube analytics. Get into it because it's going to pass a lot of people by.
Catherine, I love bringing guests onto our podcast. And this is why, because we get a glimpse of another perspective. And all that does is stimulate new thinking, not just for the two of us, but for all of you out there in our listening world or our viewing world that are connecting with us. And to Cody's point earlier, these are evergreen recordings. So you may be finding, I sat last night with an executive who was visiting from Arkansas. We were talking about the podcast, and he realized, oh my gosh, I've missed all these episodes. Great news. They exist in perpetuity. Heck, if you even want to go back and find the Hunt for Success podcast, with Coach Michael Regan. It's still there. And
We'll put it in the description, link in the description.
Deal. Listen to that, like a pro. And that's really the beauty of what we're doing. So if as the coach, I can land the plane by saying, if this idea has stimulated any thought in your mind of, is now the time? The answer is yes. The question isn't, is it the time? The question is, are you going to get going? So, Catherine, thanks again for bringing Cody back into today's episode. Cody, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure to connect with you. And look, folks, tune in each week on Wednesday to the Building Bigger Live podcast on the platform of your choice, whether you like Amazon podcasts, whether you like listening on Spotify, whether Apple, or you watch us on YouTube. We're going to continue posting this kind of content and continue bringing you guests like you've heard today with Cody Steinmann. And we look forward to seeing you on an episode very soon.